swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? And did you hear the state tell me what the negotiated plea is in this case?
Yes.
And you understand that it's a plea to second-degree murder and the sentence will be 40 years to life. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And was that your understanding as well?
Yes, sir.
And sir, do you understand that on a second-degree murder charge you could receive anything up to life as a penalty? Why don't you have a seat for a moment? I'm going to hear from the state on what the evidence would have been if you're on the trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. If the state were to proceed to trial in this matter, the state would have offered the following evidence. Mary Huntley, the victim's mother, would testify that prior to June 1st, 2010, the defendant, Jackson Mwangi, and the victim, Randi Huntley, had been involved in a romantic relationship and had a child together. They had recently broken up, and the defendant was jealous that she had started seeing other men. On Tuesday, June 1st, 2010, the defendant had visitation with the couple's son, who was 4 years old at the time of the event. The state has videotape of the defendant with his child purchasing a knife, zip ties, duct tape, BB guns, and BBs at 2 different Walmarts on June 1st, 2010. After making those purchases, the defendant went to Randy's home prior to the agreed-to drop-off time for the child when he knew Randy would be home and alone. The defendant told Randy that the child had to use the bathroom. She then brought their son into the home to use the bathroom, and the defendant followed them inside the house. According to the defendant's statement, once inside the kitchen, the defendant brought out the zip ties and BB gun and ordered Randy to bind her hands. She refused and grabbed the BB gun from him. They started arguing. The defendant kneed Randy in the groin and hit her in the face. The defendant then pulled out the knife and began stabbing Randy. The autopsy showed that in total, the defendant stabbed Randy 5 times, 2 of which hit her heart. According to the defendant's statement, during the attack, Randy grabbed a handheld sledgehammer and tried to defend herself, but the defendant grabbed it out of her hand and hit her in the head as she fled the house. Once outside, she and their child ran down the driveway of the apartment complex, yelling for help. Neighbors would testify that they saw her collapse in the driveway and she was bleeding heavily from her injuries. The defendant followed Randy out of the house and he got into his car and, by his own admission, could have just driven away. But instead, as he saw Randy lying in the driveway, he told the police that he wanted her to, and I quote, feel the pain that he felt. And that, and I quote again, this is the person that makes me cry every time I go to bed. How can I make sure she cries too? And how can I make sure with her new boyfriend that they feel pain? And he backed up his car and he hit her. The defendant then fled the scene and attempted to commit suicide. Later, he flagged down a motorist and told him that he had just, and I quote, and I apologize for the language, stabbed the shit out of his girlfriend. He was eventually found on the side of Route 101 by state police. Once taken into custody, the defendant was fully advised of his Miranda rights. He waived them and gave a full confession to police. Finally, Your Honor, Dr. Duvall would testify that an autopsy was performed on the victim on June 2nd, 2010. Dr. Duvall determined the cause of death was multiple stab wounds, and the manner of death was homicide. That would be the state's evidence in this case.
And so if you would stand again, please. And do you agree that that's the evidence the state would use to convince the jury of your guilt on this charge? And counsel, do you agree as well?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I have in front of me your acknowledgement and waiver of rights form. Did you review this with your attorney? Did he read it to you? Did you read it yourself, or was it a little bit of both? Did you have any questions for him that he could not answer? He answered all your questions? Do you understand all of these rights?
Yes.
And I see what looks like your signature on the back. Did you sign this form? Did you sign it of your own free will? Did you also discuss with your attorney the definition of the crime of second-degree murder? Did he explain to you what the state would have to prove if you had gone to trial?
Yes.
Did you also talk with him about what kinds of evidence would be used against you, for example, the murder weapon and your confession?
Yes.
And did you review whether or not there were any potential defenses to this charge?
Yes.
And counsel, did you review the acknowledgement and waiver of rights form with your client?
I did.
Did he appear at clear to understand those rights?
Yes.
Did you also discuss with him the definition of the crime and the state's burden of proof?
Yes.
And did you review the admissibility of evidence and any potential defenses?
Yes.
And was he able to participate meaningfully in those discussions?
He was.
Sir, do you understand that you are giving up your right to a speedy public jury trial in this county? Do you understand you are giving up your right to see, hear, and have your lawyer ask questions of all the witnesses? Do you understand you are giving up your right to have me order witnesses to come into court and testify to help you if there are any favorable ones? Do you understand that you are giving up your right to appeal any conviction to the Supreme Court? Do you also understand that after the sentencing part of today's hearing, there will not be a trial during which a lawyer represents you? Do you understand that if you had a trial, you would be presumed innocent at trial until the state could prove your guilt? And do you understand the state must prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt?
No.
Do you also understand that if you went to trial, you would not have to take a witness stand and testify in your own defense? And if you chose not to testify, do you understand you would be entitled to have me tell the jury they cannot consider your choice not to testify as any evidence of your guilt? And do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up your right against self-incrimination and you are in fact incriminating yourself? Do you also understand that before you could be found guilty, all 12 of the jurors would have to agree that you are in fact guilty? Are you seeing a doctor for any kind of physical problem like back problems or diabetes?
No.
Have you ever been treated for or diagnosed with a mental health condition?
No.
Are you taking any medication today?
Yes, I do take Coraxine and Rasbro,
And what do you take those for?
depression.
And you take them according to a prescription?
Yes.
Is there any other medication that you take?
No.
And do you feel like you are able to exercise good judgment today? And counsel, do you believe your client is able to enter this plea?
I do.
And do you believe he's making a free, knowing, and voluntary plea?
Yes.
Sir, have there been any threats or promises made to you other than the sentence to convince you to plead guilty? Has there been any undue pressure placed on you like anyone? Do you understand that by pleading guilty, a conviction will be entered on your criminal record?
Yes.
And are you satisfied with the services of your attorney?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty because you are in fact guilty?
Yes.
And now that you know what your rights are you willing to give up your rights and enter your plea? And is your plea made of your own free will?
Yes.
Could I see counsel briefly after this? Could I speak to most sir? I understand the defendant, I'm making a finding that the defendant understands the crime charged, sentence to be imposed, and the constitutional rights which he knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently gives up by pleading guilty, so I will allow him to do so. Third, to docket number 10S1512, charge ID number 3874001C, charging you with second-degree murder knowingly. How do you now plead guilty or not guilty? And I know we discussed previously whether or not to order the preparation of a pre-sentence investigation report, and under the statute, both sides have the opportunity to waive that. We discussed that, and as your client waived the pre-sentence investigation report.
Yes, we will do that.
Is there anything further before I ask the state to allow the victim's family to speak? Okay. You can have a seat for a moment, sir. And then any more order that you'd like to have out, please respond. We'll have the Randy's mother, Randi Huntley. Good afternoon, ma'am.
by thanking the Danville Police Department, the Fire and Rescue Unit, and the Hampshire State Police for everything they did during 2010. I would also like to thank the Attorney General's Office, the lawyers, and especially Joel for helping to make this journey as easy as I can do. I would also like to thank you, Your Honor, for taking the time to help in finally putting an end to my fear of putting a grandson through college. Jackson, you have no idea what you have done for me and my family. You may think you do, but you cannot even fathom. Not only did you take a daughter, sister, granddaughter, niece, cousin, and friend from those who loved her, and she took a mother away from her son, the son that she loved more than life itself. She will never get to see him play sports, graduate from any level of schooling, get married, and even have children. Not a day goes by that he doesn't ask about his mother, whether he's talking to her, like we all do, or just saying that he misses her. We have a very large family and friend support team, so I have no doubt he will be looked after and loved and will continue to this. I may not attend church regularly, but God forgive me, I can never forgive you for what you've done to me, my family, and especially Randy's son. No 4-year-old or any age should have to watch his father brutally murder his mother. Again, I get some relief in knowing that you have committed a mortal sin, and one day you'll need to take the oath for that. Maybe I should at least thank you for not harming Randy's son that day. It's hard enough without Randy. I cannot imagine my life without both of them. He's what keeps me going day by day. But what you did to his mother will be with him forever. At least he has therapy that is helping him to deal with it. Randy always said, what goes around comes around, and I believe that to be true in your case. I have come to terms with this plea deal, although I wanted life in prison without possibility of parole. But I strongly feel that you won't make it that long, and that gives me some peace.
Thank you very much. Sister Andrea Huntley.
I want to make the Danville Police Department the state police, the emergency personnel, and the Attorney General's office for their compassion and support through this troubling time. I also want to thank the neighbors who called 911 for assistance. I'm truly grateful for all of you. June 1st, 2010 is the day I will never forget. I received a call from my mother that Randy had been attacked by the defendant, a man who once told me he was never a woman. Nobody knew the severity of the crime at the time. My father and mother and younger sister were on their way to the hospital to be with her, and I left work to check on my 4-year-old son. I arrived at the house to find the defendant had cowardly left with me and that my nephew was in police custody. It tore at my heart to not be able to talk with him, but I was grateful that he wasn't hurt, and I thank God every day for that. A very kind station over, and then asked my aunt and me to come to his car so that he could tell us some details of the case. I sat in the front seat of the cruiser and told her that they caught the defendant and that she didn't make it. I watched it, and I kept yelling, why? A question I'm sure I'll never have answered, although there is absolutely no reason for murder. I had to compose myself, and these groups were starting to set up on the street, and my nephew was sitting only a few feet from me. He told me to stand there knowing what I knew, and that there was nothing I could do. My father came to bring me to the hospital. We arrived with family and friends. Immediate family were the only ones who could see her. We walked down the hallway, where a nurse told my sister and I that only parents could be in the, only parents could go in the room, and we stood hand in hand, and we broke down, and we fought for our right to see her. To see what this monster had done to her, and be able to say goodbye. I told her I loved her and that I was sorry. My baby sister died here in a home that day. The hardest part of that day, though, was sitting down her 4-year-old son and telling her his mother was dead and that she was never coming back. No one, especially not a child, should ever have to hear those words. I've had nightmares every night about this horrible tragedy, and I'm hoping that they stop now, as this matter is coming to some sort of a close for you at least. I always told my sister that God forbid something happened to her when Jackson and I would raise her son to be the man I knew she wanted him to be. I only never thought something would actually happen. I'll keep my promise to my sister, and I know that everyone involved in her son's life will protect and care for him too. I've seen this type of horrible crime in the news in a movie, but never in a million years would I ever think it would happen to me. Jackson, I hate you. I hate you for what you did to me and my family. You took away a part of everyone in this courtroom that day. You're a despicable excuse for a human being. You attacked the one person who loved you for many years and truly cared for your well-being. You took away a child's mother. You're selfish and a coward. No apology will ever be sufficient enough for me, and I will never forgive you. And I do hope that you fall in time.
And Your Honor, Elizabeth Huntley also.
I would also like to start by thanking the General Attorney's Office for all your best. Also, we thank you to all of the emergency response teams that were there on June 1st, 2010. That day is one I will never forget. From the phone call to drive to the hospital to the ride into the ER, only to get the news a few moments later that my sister did not make it. The hardest part being there was nothing I could do to help her. To the coward that committed this horrific and selfish crime, there will never be an apology good enough for the pain you have caused myself, my family, and our friends. But more importantly, the pain you caused my innocent sister. My family took you in as one of our own when you had no one. We showed you nothing but the utmost respect, and you repay us by maliciously murdering my sister. You took her hopes, her dreams, her life away without any remorse. Now her son will grow up, and when we get to know her, his mother, by stories and memories myself and other loved ones will share, and he has you to thank for that. No amount of jail time will ever be sufficient enough. You will rot in hell for what you have done, and when your day comes, I only pray that you endure the same pain you inflicted on my loving and beautiful sister. She did not deserve this, but you will get what you deserve, and I promise you that. And finally, to my sister, who was taken from us way too soon, forever and always, my sister. Thank you.
If you would stand, please, and if I could just say a few words to the Huntley book transfer sentence. I cannot think of a worse nightmare than what you all had to endure. And you need to know that forgiveness is not required or even appropriate under these circumstances. You're entitled to that, and you never have to do it. I hope that the only thing that comes from today is the slow anything I can say to make it easier, or to change the policy to allow this. And sir, based on the plea, you are sentenced to the Hampshire State Prison for not more than life, no less than 40 years, stand committed, commencing forthwith, with a pre-trial confinement committed of 370 days, and in order to make restitution in the amount of $5,500, you will pay to the Department of Corrections, and note that you waive sentence freedom in writing in your order to be within the year, and are remanded to trustee of the sheriff.
All right, please.